The Vikings, often portrayed as fierce warriors clad in horned helmets, have long captured the imagination of historians, writers, and filmmakers. Their reputation as ferocious raiders, conquerors, and seafarers is well deserved, but there is much more to their story. These Scandinavian adventurers were also traders, explorers, settlers, and even poets. They played a pivotal role in shaping medieval Europe, and their influence extended far beyond the battlefield. In this article, we'll delve into some of the lesser-known aspects of Viking life, culture, and history, uncovering surprising facts that challenge the popular image of these legendary Norsemen. The Vikings didn't wear horned helmets. One of the most enduring myths about the Vikings is their iconic horned helmets, which have become a symbol of their warrior culture. However, there is no historical evidence to suggest that Vikings ever wore such helmets in battle. The misconception likely originated in the 19th century when artists and costume designers, inspired by ancient Norse mythology, began to depict Vikings with horned headgear. In reality, Viking helmets were much more practical and designed for combat. They were typically made of iron, with a simple conical shape to deflect blows. The horned helmet image has become so ingrained in popular culture that it's difficult to separate fact from fiction, but historians agree that it's a myth. Vikings were skilled shipbuilders and navigators. The Vikings are perhaps best known for their incredible seafaring abilities. They built highly advanced longships, which were key to their success as raiders and explorers. These ships were lightweight, fast, and could navigate both open seas and shallow rivers, allowing the Vikings to launch surprise attacks on coastal settlements and penetrate deep into inland territories. Viking longships were a marvel of engineering, with a shallow draft that enabled them to land on almost any beach. The use of a single sail and a series of oars allowed for flexibility in navigating various water conditions. What's even more remarkable is their navigational prowess. Vikings didn't have compasses, but they used the stars, the sun, and even migratory birds to find their way. Some scholars believe they may have used a sunstone, a type of crystal that polarizes light, to help them navigate on cloudy days. This allowed them to travel vast distances across the Atlantic, reaching as far as North America long before Christopher Columbus. The Vikings were pioneers in exploration. While the Vikings are often associated with raiding and pillaging, they were also pioneers in exploration. They ventured far beyond their Scandinavian homelands, establishing settlements and trading networks across Europe, Asia, and even North America. One of the most significant Viking explorers was Leif Erikson, who is believed to have reached North America around the year 1000, nearly 500 years before Columbus. He and his crew settled in an area they called Vinland, which is thought to be located in modern-day Newfoundland, Canada. The Vikings also traveled eastward along the rivers of Russia to the Byzantine Empire and the Caliphate of Baghdad. They traded furs, slaves, and other goods, integrating themselves into the broader medieval world. Their journeys took them as far as the Caspian Sea, demonstrating their ambition and adaptability as both traders and explorers. Viking society was more complex than you might think. Viking society was not just a collection of brutal warriors. It was highly structured and surprisingly progressive in some ways. The basic social structure was divided into three classes: thralls, slaves; carls, free peasants; and jarls, nobility. Thralls were typically captured in raids and used as laborers, while carls were the backbone of Viking society, working as farmers, craftsmen, and merchants. Jarls were the leaders and wealthy landowners who wielded significant power and influence. Despite the social hierarchy, Viking society was relatively fluid. Thralls could earn their freedom, and carls could rise to become jarls through success in battle or trade. The Vikings also practiced a form of early democracy. Local assemblies called things were held, where free men could gather to discuss and resolve legal matters, settle disputes, and make decisions about their communities. These assemblies were an essential part of Viking life and played a significant role in maintaining social order. Viking women had more rights than in many other cultures. While Viking society was patriarchal, women in Viking culture enjoyed more rights and freedoms than in many other contemporary societies. Viking women could own property, request a divorce, and reclaim their dowries if their marriages ended. They were also responsible for managing households and could run farms or businesses in the absence of their husbands. In some cases, women even took on roles traditionally reserved for men. Historical sources and archaeological evidence suggest that some Viking women may have fought alongside men in battle, although this remains a topic of debate among scholars. The existence of female warriors, such as the legendary shield maidens, has been mentioned in sagas and poems, though it's unclear whether these accounts are based on real events or mythological embellishments. The Vikings were not unified. When people think of the Vikings, they often imagine a single, unified group of people. In reality, the term Viking refers to a wide array of Scandinavian groups, each with its own leaders, territories, and agendas. The Vikings came from what is now Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, and they often fought against each other as much as they fought against other peoples. For instance, the Kingdom of Denmark was one of the most powerful Viking kingdoms and played a crucial role in the Viking expansion into England and France. Meanwhile, the Swedes were more focused on eastward expansion, trading, and raiding along the rivers of Eastern Europe, eventually founding the Kievan Rus. The Norwegians, on the other hand, are most associated with the westward exploration of the North Atlantic, including settlements in Iceland, Greenland, and Vinland. Although the Vikings are often remembered for their raids, they were also avid traders. Viking merchants traveled far and wide, establishing trade routes that stretched from the Middle East to North America. They traded goods such as furs, ivory, amber, and slaves in exchange for silver, silk, spices, and other valuable items. The Vikings had extensive trade networks, and their reach extended as far as Baghdad in the Islamic Caliphate and Constantinople in the Byzantine Empire. The Viking trading town of Hedeby, located in modern-day Germany, was one of the most important trading hubs in northern Europe during the Viking Age. Another major center of Viking trade was Birka in Sweden, which was a key stop along the trade routes that connected Scandinavia to the Byzantine Empire and the Arab world. Viking raids were motivated by more than just greed. The Viking raids, which began in the late 8th century, were not just the result of greed and a lust for plunder. While acquiring wealth was undoubtedly a motivation, there were other factors at play. Overpopulation and limited agricultural land in Scandinavia pushed many Vikings to seek new territories. Raiding became a way for younger sons, who had no inheritance rights, to acquire wealth and status. Additionally, political fragmentation in Europe made many coastal areas vulnerable to Viking attacks. The weakening of the Carolingian Empire, the division of Anglo-Saxon kingdoms in England, and the internal conflicts of the Frankish kingdoms provided ample opportunities for Viking raiders to strike with little resistance. Vikings were religious syncretists. The religious beliefs of the Vikings were complex and evolved over time. While they are best known for their worship of Norse gods like Odin, Thor, and Freya, they were also highly pragmatic when it came to religion. As they came into contact with Christian Europe, many Vikings adopted Christianity, sometimes out of genuine belief, but often for political and economic reasons. The conversion to Christianity helped the Vikings integrate into European society and facilitated trade with Christian kingdoms. For instance, the Danish king Harald Bluetooth converted to Christianity around 965 AD, likely to strengthen his political alliances with the Holy Roman Empire. However, even after their conversion, many Vikings continued to practice elements of their old pagan faith, leading to a period of religious syncretism where Christian and pagan practices coexisted. The Viking legacy, from raiders to kings. The Viking Age may have been characterized by raids and exploration, but it eventually gave way to a more settled and structured phase. By the 11th century, many Viking leaders had established themselves as kings or rulers of territories in Europe. Knut the Great, for example, ruled over a vast North Sea empire that included Denmark, England, Norway, and parts of Sweden. Viking influence also extended to Normandy in France, where Viking leader Rollo was granted land by the Frankish king Charles the Simple in exchange for protection from other Viking raids. Rollo's descendants would go on to become the Normans, who played a significant role in European history, including the conquest of England in 1066. The end of the Viking Age is often marked by the defeat of the Norwegian king Harald Hardrada at the Battle of Stamford Bridge in 1066, shortly before William the Conqueror's invasion of England. This marked the decline of Viking dominance, but their legacy endured in the kingdoms they helped shape, the trade routes they established, and the cultural impact they left on Europe. The Vikings were far more than just raiders and warriors. They were explorers, traders, and settlers who left an indelible mark on the world. Their influence can still be felt today,